We begin with a report on a new alliance formed to advance ICT across the continent under the aegis of AFICTA. With a population of more than 1 billion, GDP of over $2 trillion and growth rate of more than 5%, Africa is poised to explore the benefits of the digital age. The continent, which is globally seen as a next economic frontier, recently held a regional summit in Lagos. Stakeholders from the region's ICT sector convened to brainstorm and engender fulfillment of the digital age in Africa.
The alliance is the coming together of the National ICT Association from currently 10 African countries. There's Nigeria, where we have the Association of Telecom Companies of Nigeria and other companies. South Africa, the Computer Society of South Africa, the Information Technology Association of South Africa, also of Kenya.
The promise of the digital age is as articulated in the Geneva Convention 2003 and the Tunis Agenda of 2005 of the World Summit on Information Society. To this end, the Africa Information and Communication Technology Alliance was formed to ensure that the private sector participates fully in the digital process to complement efforts of various governments across the region.
This summit is about business angle of the solutions to making Africa to have its own presence.
Yes, for a radical and revolutionary access to the digital world. Remember, today, broadcast stations are online, newspapers are online, there's a social media, so there is no barrier.
But there are some challenges that must be overcome for Africa to fully benefit from the promises of the digital age.
Well, I think the first thing that one would need to do is that for us to enjoy the benefits of digitalization, we need to ensure that there is electricity across all components, because without electricity we could not get broadband access.
The 3-day summit would also include awareness roadshow, high-level panel of African governments with ICT business leaders, among others. Microsoft is teaming with Chinese telecom Huawei to sell a low-cost Windows-powered smartphone in Africa. The phones, according to Microsoft, will initially cost about $150 and will be sold in 7 countries, including Nigeria, South Africa, Morocco and Egypt, under the For Africa initiative. To this end, Microsoft Nigeria says it is aimed at increasing adoption of smart devices in the continent. Africa's smartphone market has reportedly grown at an average of 43% a year since 2000, with Nigeria at the center of this growth. In sub-Saharan Africa, 10% of the 450 million cell phone users have smartphones, but that number is expected to rise, says the New York Times.
Africa has great potential. It's been mentioned multiple times by multiple organizations and people. The question is, what are we doing for it? Most organizations are waiting for that potential to be realized. We decided to think differently. We decided to innovate around our business model and invest in that promise of Africa.
If the promise of these 2 tech giants is anything to go by, then by 2016, about 1 million African SMEs would be online. 100,000 members of Africa's existing workforce would have been upskilled, and an additional 100,000 graduates will be groomed for employment. Over the last decade, Africa has experienced unparalleled economic growth, putting the continent on a pedestal to become the next growth frontier. Development experts predict that economies in Africa will continue to grow at an average of 6%, even when the rest of the world is currently facing a slump in economic growth, with technology playing a key role.